Hey everybody, this is Pat Torpy from Mr. Big, and you're listening to Music Mania.
You ready for some screaming heavy metal? We rock!
But the evil that men do lives on.
We gonna bang your head!
You are now listening to the Music Mania podcast, brought to you by CD Warehouse in Gladstone, the #1 hard rock podcast in the Midwest, featuring hard-hitting interviews with rock's living legends. And now, here's your host, Clint Schweitzer.
Thank you once again for joining me here on the Music Mania podcast. I am your host, Clint Schweitzer, and I tell you what, special show this week as I was able to head up the Ted Nugent show here at Bonner Springs, Kansas this past week, and what a great time it was. Able to catch up with bass player Greg Smith, blood brother Greg Smith, on a run of bassists here on the Music Mania podcast. We've had Phil Soussan from Last in Line, from Ozzy, from Raiding the Rock Vault. Then it was Marco Mendoza, another former Ted Nugent band member of the Dead Daisies and Whitesnake. And now this week, it is definitely our pleasure to welcome back Greg Smith, who was on the show on the phone last year. This time, we were able to catch up in person on the tour bus backstage after the Ted Nugent concert. Ted Nugent played to a packed crowd. I mean, over 10,000 people at this amphitheater here, Sandstone Amphitheater. I believe now it's called Providence Medical Center Amphitheater. Always be Sandstone to those of us that grew up here in the Kansas City area. But Ted Nugent played in front of 10,000 people. Of course, Great White, Jack Russell's Great White, and Blue Oyster Cult also on the bill. So it was cool to see that many people show up. I know Ted tours typically every summer. Last year, he played at a smaller venue, packed that. Now here at Providence Medical Center Amphitheater, and just a tremendous show. And Greg Smith, a good friend of our show, coming back on to talk about playing with Alice Cooper. He of course appeared in the movie Wayne's World, playing with a guy like Tommy James. Kind of just a renaissance guy as far as a bass player. He's done it all. He's played with Dokken. He's played with Blue Oyster Cult. He's played with Rainbow. Talked to him about Richie Blackmore and the Deep Purple being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Richie not being there. Greg knows a lot of people. He has some really good stories, so it was cool to catch up with him. We're going to go to that interview in just a minute, but we want to thank you for downloading, thank you for subscribing, and thank you for checking out our sponsor, CD Warehouse in Gladstone, Missouri, 22 years strong. A staple of the Northland. Anything you need from CDs, vinyls, DVDs, used, new, you got it all there. Randy Ringer at CD Warehouse in Gladstone. And again, get out and see some shows this summer, man. This has been a huge run for me. It's been a heck of a summer. I've seen so many concerts. My head's spinning. I've been on the road. I've been on vacations to LA and Vegas and now back for the remainder of the summer. And coming up, I still have Guns N' Roses down in Little Rock on the docket. Going to be checking that out on August 5th, so down at War Memorial Stadium. So that'll be a blast. I still got Lionel Richie coming up. That's going to be a good one. We got Kix coming in. I haven't seen Kix. Going to be great to catch up with those guys. I love Kix. One of my favorite bands from the 80s, man. I love Midnight Dynamite, Blow My Fuse. Great stuff from them. And then Lionel Richie coming up at the end of the summer. We got Dead Daisies coming up. Alice Cooper. A lot of big things, a lot of big interviews still to come here on the Music Mania podcast. So we're going to get to my backstage interview with Greg Smith right after this. If you miss the experience and atmosphere of an old school record store, then visit CD Warehouse in Gladstone. Your one-stop shop for CDs, vinyl, t-shirts, and more. We just moved downstairs from our previous location, so visit us at 2504 Northeast 57th Terrace in Kansas City, Missouri, or call 816-455-2130. CD Warehouse, 22 years strong in North Kansas City, Missouri. And don't forget, we buy, sell, and trade. Well, I had to sneak this equipment into the show, by the way, and this is like the 8th time I've had to do this, and it's always sort of sketchy. Like, they never quite get down. They're like, they didn't want you this time. Yeah, I'm like, eventually they just realize
they wanted me over here, and I said, well, I'm the bass player, so actually if I had a gun, it would be allowed.
Exactly. No, if it's like Heartless or someone, the drummers are the ones you can't trust. Speaking of Jason Heartless, though, I mean, hard hitter. Yeah. Where did you find this kid? I mean, he's like 10 years younger than me, and so now
he's 22 years old.
Yeah, that's crazy.
22 years old. His band opened up for us in 2014 when he was 19, a band called Pistol Day Parade, and
I remember that band. I saw you guys out here at the Uptown.
Sure,
that was a great.
sure.
I liked that band a lot.
That's right. We played here.
Yeah.
And he was a great drummer. He was just one of those. He's probably one of those kids that was like a YouTube sensation at 7. You know what I mean? But yeah, the kid was a great player. And when Ted was looking for somebody, he came recommended, and Ted flew him out to Texas. Flew me out to Texas. We jammed literally about 3 songs in some little garage studio. And he was like, "Yeah, man, that's it. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, good." And so, I'm like, I flew all this way just to, let's at least,
couple more songs.
Some more, come on, let's play some Hendrix shit or something, whatever. But that was it, man. He knew what he wanted, and he had it, and that was it.
I mean,
I was on a plane the next day back home.
You've done so much, but Ted has played with so many great musicians. We talked about Marco Mendoza, who we had on last week. I mean, from Tommy Clufados to Tommy Aldridge to Barry Sparks, some of the great players he's played with. And this band right here seems so solidified. You've been in here for quite a while.
My 11th year.
That's insane.
I might be the longest lasting band member.
We got to look that up. I think that might be true.
Got to look that up.
Is that good or bad? Does that mean?
I don't know. It might mean I might get fired next year. I don't know.
Yeah, it's 11 years in. I mean, in the show, and here at this show, and we're backstage here at the Providence Medical Center Amphitheater. I can't even say that because this is. Growing up here, this is Sandstone Amphitheater. You guys, you played here in probably many incarnations and many bands.
Sure,
I think you played here with Dokken at one point.
I probably did.
I'm pretty sure. Like
probably Alice Cooper and.
When you hit these venues, is it like you kind of remember? Oh, I remember this, or is it just like you just many dates?
Some places I remember. If I get there early enough, and wander around, I can remember certain things, But I didn't get here early enough, By the time I got here, crowd was coming in, and because sometimes I'll walk out. And I'll notice something out front or out, like one of the where the concessions are or something that looks familiar, But I didn't get the chance to do that today.
Well, what a show! I mean, we had kind of a strange show for this tour because you had Great White on it, Jack Russell's Great White, and Blue Oyster Cult, so it was kind of a big deal.
I played with Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah, that's right. You had back in '95, I think.
'95. I did their summer tour in '95, and
so you're officially linked to every band that's ever existed. I'm pretty sure. Like the 8 Degrees.
I'm still waiting on the Jimmy Page thing, man.
We'll get you there.
Still waiting on that one. But it's great to see
play
them.
with David Coverdale sometime.
My buddies Jules and Danny, who are the drummer and bass player of Blue Oyster Cult, they're my Long Island friends from way back. I mean, I grew up in Long Island, and I remember those guys from the clubs, and always great to see them,
Yeah, and this, like Ted says, every summer you guys are out here doing this. Is your you ever have a summer off? You ever been to a lake or on vacation?
We didn't tour in 2009, and we didn't tour in 2015, and I was actually out those summers with Happy Together, the Turtles and a bunch of other oldie bands.
Of course, you play with Tommy James.
Play with Tommy James and the Shondells.
That's amazing.
Been with him 16 years.
That's insane, and he's so great. He's just a legend himself.
Yeah.
I think he's actually
Great
younger
guy.
than Ted. Can we go there?
No, he's actually 1 year older.
Okay, I knew it was close.
1 year
Tommy
older.
was a little younger than I thought he would be.
Yeah.
Taking him back to those days like Moni.
He just turned 70.
That's insane. And Ted's still not quite 70 yet.
I remember years ago when I first started with Ted, I asked, I said, "Hey, man, Tommy James is a Michigan boy. You're a Michigan boy. Did you guys ever run together or hang together back in the day?" And he goes, "Well, no, I never did." He goes, "How old is that guy?" And I told him at the time how old he was, and he's a year older than Ted. He goes, "Tell that old son of a bitch I said hello."
Oh, we're still waiting for that tour. Could you pull double duty? That'd be a cool Motor City tour. But
Well, you know what? Ted's got an unlikely a fan, Gary Puckett from the Union Gap last year. Wasn't last year. Last year. Before coming out and doing the TED tour, I did 2 weeks out on the Happy Together tour before starting, and Gary Puckett was part of that. So when I split, I was like, "Hey, Gary, it's been a pleasure, man. You're a great performer, and I grew up listening to you. It's such a pleasure to play those wonderful songs." And he, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm going out to do the Ted Nugent tour." He goes, "Tell Ted I love him and everything he stands for." I said, "I will do that." He goes, "Also tell him I love Birdland guitars."
Gibson Birdland, man.
So I come out. I said, "Hey, Ted, you have an unlikely fan, Gary Puckett." He goes, "Of course he loves me. He's a smart man."
You always wonder, because you played with Alice Cooper, and we've had every Alice Cooper band member on, and they always say the same thing. He's literally a character on stage. He's just But I don't think for Ted that maybe that there is no
There's no
difference.
character.
And there's no character.
That's the same guy.
And and playing with them, and you're such a groovy bassist yourself, if I can use that term. I mean,
well, thanks.
I love your style. I love just bassists that play with their fingers. That's kind of the simple way to put it as a non-musician.
Except for Stranglehold.
well, I don't think anyone would want to attempt that.
When I first started in the band, he goes, Stranglehold with a pick, right? I went, whatever you want, boss.
Well, he's so improvisational. What's it like for the band? I mean, you and Jason, when he just in the middle of a song, he just goes off, and it's just these different melodies. And
well, for instance, don't tread on me. That was a new thing.
And you're like,
okay, let's
along.
go. It's an A. I can do this. I've heard it. And I like that, though, but I get used to that playing with Rainbow, You never knew when Richie was going to bust into a Hendrix song or just, an old Deep Purple song. Or you just kind of had to be prepared and know it, And so, yeah, I got used to that, and it's I like it. It kind of keeps you on your toes,
Yeah.
I always like the element of danger,
You got plenty of that. You talk about Richie, and I mean, he's talked like he might play a show with Deep Purple, like might do one more. Like he wasn't there for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which I thought was unfortunate for the fans. I'm just glad the band's in.
I agree.
Rainbow's kind of getting back going as well, but. Yep. What do you? I mean, Richie at least a little bit. I don't think anyone knows him well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I got along really well with him. I was in the band 3 years, and actually 94, 97, so 3 plus. But I lived in Long Island at the time, in a town called Amityville. I'm sure you've heard of that town.
I have.
Yeah. Actually, the only thing scary about Amityville is the property taxes. No ghosts.
That's what Dee Snider said. Yeah.
Did he say that?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Okay, he didn't. He's not far from there either.
Yeah.
But anyway, I used to go out to dinner at least 3 times a week with Richie, and we got along really great. But yeah, I'm glad he's doing what he's doing. He's always been into that medieval stuff, and good for him, man. I just hope he's happy. I'm sure he is. And
I mean, of all these things you've done, though, and your career, going back, and I knew who you were, starting with the Alice Cooper band. I've had a lot of musicians on that say that "Hey Stupid" is their favorite '80s hair metal Alice
Wow.
Cooper album. It's my second behind Constrictor, but I'm weird.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, but yeah, I mean,
well,
going
actually,
back to
it came out in 91.
Yeah,
so
Hey Stupid was 91, and
Yeah.
Constrictor, I think, was 86.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you were in there back then. And
Well, I didn't play on the album. I did
later.
the tour. I did the tour for that. Actually, I think there's a bunch of different bass players who played on that album. I know Nikki Six played on a couple songs.
Because that Pete Friesen was on guitar at that
Hugh
point.
McDonald played on some stuff, I think. I think Hugh McDonald played on Hey Stupid.
Okay, but by the time Wayne's World rolled around, which is what's important, there was Greg Smith.
I was
that's
there.
That's so you're the recognized bassist of that era. So
Yeah.
obviously, and then on into The Last Temptation, and
Yeah.
on into you did the Brutal Planet, Dragontown. Those were like very
Right.
progressive.
Well, I did the Brutal Planet tour. Dragontown, Brutal Planet. The producer Barb Marlette wanted to play bass, so when Dragontown came around, actually Alice himself told Bob that he wanted me to play bass, and I appreciate that. So I got to play bass on that. It was kind of funny because I got the demos for it. And, I came up with my own parts and stuff like that, and I was really looking forward to it. Then I get there, and apparently, I guess Bob wasn't too happy that I was playing bass. And he goes, all right, what you're going to do? I actually use that bass that I played tonight, that
That's
old
a good
Fender
bass.
Precision bass. And he says, all right, you're going to tune that E string down to C, and I want you to play everything on that string. I went, you're kidding.
That's what that album sound. The sound of it was so down-tuned,
So-
though. It was a different sound.
And so, still to this day, I played on every song except for 2, because I think they changed the keys, and then Bob played bass on it after I left or something. I don't remember the exact scenario, but still to this day, unless I look at the credits, I don't know what I played on because
Right.
it's not really my style of playing,
Oh yeah, and it was so different. And those
But
albums
I
were
was
different.
very happy that I played on it, and my whole thing was after I got there and realized that I was going to be able to do my thing, I realized, well, somebody's going to play on this album. It might as well be me.
And
The
important thing is that you get the check for it. I got the check
that too.
clear.
And what was really cool? They had me out there for I think it was over a week, and they gave me the choice of getting a hotel that they paid for, or they'd give me the money for the hotel. They got me a car, and I finished the album in 2 days, and I hung out with a buddy of mine in Marina Del Rey the whole rest of the time. So it was
That's
almost
awesome.
like a record for a couple of days and then vacation. Woohoo!
Because you live out in Pennsylvania now, right?
I'm in Pennsylvania now.
How's
Yeah.
that? Just
It's-
living the dream.
I love it. I've got a 100-year-old farmhouse, and it's
yeah.
on a creek. I got a barn that I turned into a studio. It's nice and quiet. I mean, I grew up in the shadow of New York City,
Right.
in Valley Stream, New York, 20 minutes from New York City. It was completely insane when growing up. Hanging out with this guy right here next to you.
You said you had some stories. Now's a good time to.
No, you don't want to know those stories.
He's not Mike.
I'm not sure if the statute of limitations is up.
You're in a different state. There's a lot of
There's a reason he lives in Omaha.
I don't think Kansas doesn't extradite. You guys would be okay. But they live the quiet life. But every summer, and of course you tour with Tommy James. I don't know how many dates he does a year, but.
Actually, at the end of this tour, I'm flying to Las Vegas right from our last gig to do a gig with Tommy in Las Vegas.
Oh, were you guys playing there?
Yeah.
I just
the Golden Nugget.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of a little famous. Yeah, I definitely know that venue. I just came from there. Saw, we were talking about earlier. I met Phil Susan, met the Raiding the Rock Vault guys. They do a great show out there.
Yeah.
And
they play the Golden Nugget.
They play at Hard Rock now.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And then Last in Line with Vinny Appice.
Yeah,
and those guys, they played Vamped, which was an awesome show. I don't know if you knew Ronnie James Dio at all. Of course,
Ronnie
those guys
was a very close friend of mine.
and those guys
I
keep
them
that
dearly.
alive, man.
Yeah.
They really do. Andrew
Yeah.
Freeman does a good job on the vocals.
I
but no
agree.
one.
I saw them in Italy. I was playing played the Frontiers Festival a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and
I got to see them, and I thought they were great.
they do a great job. No,
I actually reached out to Vivian
yeah.
a little too late. The thing is, Jimmy Bain was a friend of mine too. And when he passed, it hit me hard. It hit everybody hard in the rock and roll business.
Sure.
And I thought, well, since I'd played with Rainbow and stuff like that, I'd like to do his job justice. And I waited because I didn't feel right about calling and going, hey man, I'll do the gig. But apparently a lot of people did.
Right. Including Phil, who we just talked to. And
yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know how he got it or anything, and nothing against Phil.
Sure,
I
sure.
think he's a great player and he's a great guy. But I waited a little too long, I think, to reach out to Vivian.
Yeah.
And offer my services. Because I just didn't feel right about doing something like that. I don't want to get a gig because somebody passes away, especially a friend.
And he on tour, during the Monsters of Rock crew on the and that's just
it's awful. It's awful.
And just deaths. Too many of those. But
too many.
It's sobering for me, as a fan, because it's when you realize your heroes aren't going to be around forever.
Yeah.
And that's, Oh, we have
Mr.
Heartless walked in here, and he would be welcome to join if we had another beer, whatever this Mexican IPA is we're enjoying right now.
He doesn't drink.
Oh, good guy. He and Ted both. They're probably hanging out right now.
leaves more for me.
Well, hey, Jason, I saw you in Pistol Day Parade when you guys opened. Great band. Love that band. I downloaded a bunch of that stuff for free illegally after we saw you guys. So that's a sign of respect these days. You downloaded my stuff, awesome, for free. Rip off artist. But no, great show tonight, guys. And what this Ted Nugent band means. You see what it means to so many people, and I think over 10,000 here tonight. I mean,
it was a packed house, man. It was a great crowd, So
great to see.
Beautiful night here in Kansas City. Bonner Springs.
Right. Yeah.
Bonner Springs City.
If you're not familiar with Kansas City, this whole thing's kind of confusing. It's like Kansas City, Bonner Springs, Kansas City, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri. It's all
right.
one and the same. But hey,
either way, it's good barbecue.
It's good barbecue. Hope you guys can get some of that. Hope you guys can at least relax a little bit. As last year the theme was "Make it great again, take it back," is what Ted said. This year the theme is sort of like kind of a exhaling a bit in victory. Maybe this is just sort of some symbolism in the show this year.
I suppose so. Yeah. Things are. I mean, especially today. He just, his grandson was born today, so he's over the moon with happiness. And I don't know if you saw, he had an open letter to his grandson on Facebook, which is just spectacular.
Yeah, and I see his Facebook Live videos.
I think I want to print that out and make my daughter read it.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, my daughter's a great kid, but it's just stuff she should never forget.
There are certain things as Americans that we should all be able to unify under. I think Ted stands for a lot of those things. And hey, what a great show. Greg, you're one of my favorite bass players
thank you,
on planet
man.
Earth, man. We've had a run of bass players here on the Music Mania podcast. We'll make a run at Jason Heartless next, man.
Yeah,
he hits hard. What a great drummer he is. What a great addition. Tom, following in the vein of Tommy Aldridge, Tommy Clufado, so many great drummers in this Ted Nugent band. Of course, Mick Brown. Consider him one. I'm a Mick Brown fan.
I love him.
He has more energy than me. I'm 32 years old.
Mick is he's an amazing human being and drummer in So many ways, one of my closest friends, and I love him dearly.
Hey, Greg,
and
thanks a lot.
I'm happy he's busy and doing well.
Yeah,
so.
Great guy. Hey, Greg, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure, man.
Hey, appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Anytime.
You bet. Thank you to Blood Brother Greg Smith joining us once again and having me back on, having me on his tour bus after the show. Had some like Mexican IPA beer. Never experienced that, but I was so thirsty. Like, I didn't want to move during the show where, Greg was kind enough to leave us some tickets pretty close up there. And it was one of those deals that, like, where the front of the venue was, you kind of had to go through this line every time. If you wanted to go to the bathroom or get a drink, you had to go through this line and show your ticket. And it was just kind of a mess. So I just kind of wanted to stay put. So I was thirsty, and when you're thirsty, you get a Mexican IPA tastes pretty good. So no complaints there. It was great to be back. Great to see Ted Nugent. Whether you agree with Ted or not, one of the great rhythm guitar players of all time. Just to watch him and the way he engages an audience, the way he talks. I mean, he's over the top. That's Ted. Everybody knows that. But he's got the chops. The band is great with Jason Hartless also on drums. What a player he is. 22-year-old kid. They found him in the band Pistol Day Parade. Ted Nugent's always had probably the best rhythm section in rock. You think back to the days where he had Tommy Aldridge, Marco Mendoza. He's had Tommy Clufedos, to Barry Sparks. Some really good players have been in this band over the years, and now this band is very solidified and just doing great. You got to be really happy for this Jason Hartless kid getting what a chance that he's getting to perform. And it was great to see my buddy Jack Russell. I'll tell you what, Jack Russell of Jack Russell's Great White, they brought it out there, man. There was a big crowd showed up early to see them. Cool to see Jack. He's moving around better. He's sounding better than I've ever seen him. He looks great. He's been sober for 2 years. We've had him on this show a couple times, and I was wanted to catch an interview with him, but time just wouldn't allow it. I tell you what, he was meeting fans, signing autographs, taking pictures backstage. So I wanted to let him do that. I wanted to allow time for fans to come and meet him. So, I shook his hand and said hi and moved on, but it was really good to see him do that. And Blue Oyster Cult always doing their things. I'll tell you what, Blue Oyster Cult's not like a band that I delve into, really deeply. But those hits, Godzilla, Burning for You, and Don't Fear the Reaper, those come off huge. They still sound great. Props to Blue Oyster Cult. They definitely made an impression that night too, and of course Ted Nugent rounding it off. And what a great time it was. Want to thank Greg Smith for joining us. Want to thank CD Warehouse for sponsoring. Guys, hit that subscribe button on iTunes or YouTube, and hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up on Facebook. Music Mania Podcast. Always willing to interact with you guys. Any ideas you have for shows, I am always up for it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Music Mania Podcast. Once again, see you next time.